Yo,
What's going on, man?
my guy, chilling, man. How are you?
Doing all right. How are you? You good?
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, yeah, doing okay.
Yeah, man. It's been crazy times, man. Crazy times.
Yo, that is one way to say it. Where are you?
I'm in Brooklyn,
We're in Brooklyn.
downtown Fort Greene.
Okay, bet. I'm in Bed-Stuy.
Okay, yeah, down the
Yeah,
road, man.
that's a fact. How's your quarantine been?
It's been, man. It's one of those things where you just make it work. We don't have another option, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Gotta do what we gotta do. It's been pretty comfortable though. I mean,
You dolo, you got roommates, you got
nah, man. I got my own spot. I got there's me and the pup. That's
what kind
it.
of dog you have?
I have a chocolate lab. He's
Nice.
7 months, turning 8 months here next week. Uh, it's been a journey, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Huh.
I took him hiking yesterday. Had a great time. Tired him out a little bit, so he's been sleeping the day away, which is always nice when he can settle down and relax and um, sleep. leave,
What's
leave
his
him
name?
alone. His name is Rafi.
Rafi.
Major Rafiki Martin. It's a real name, because he's a real dog, Rafiki is friend in Swahili, so that's uh that's where that's
That's
my
legit.
intention when I named him that he'd be
That's
a good
dope,
dog.
man.
So
Well, yo, I really appreciate you taking some time here. I've been watching your grind and it's been a long time since we talked. So I was just like, yo, let me hit this guy up and see what we can make together. But the way this just typically would work, I'm going to introduce you and then we're just going to chop it up. I got a couple of questions. I've been reading about you and I got pretty familiar with what you're working on. So I got like more pointed questions. But as we kind of talk, the general framework of this is kind of about your life, some of your experience, but all based around routine. So like I said, like I got a lot of response. People were like, whoa, that's your morning routine. And like during quarantine, a routine has been an incredible motif to at least set me up with something consistent and to know where I'm like pacing. And I think like there's nobody better in the world to talk about routines with than a professional athlete because you're a free agent now, you're still staying in football shape, like you're ready for whatever's next, no matter what. And that's a mindset. And I think everybody can learn a little bit about that and put something like that into their own lives. So I figured, let's ask you.
yeah, man, I'll try my best. Listen, quarantine's gotten the best of me for sure in terms of my routine, man. But I can definitely speak to my personal experiences, and hopefully it will
That's it.
help
That's all
help
we
some
want.
people out. Yeah,
So whenever you're ready, we're going to jump in. And if you want a chop at any spot, just be like, yo, chop that, and we'll cut it out when we edit.
cool.
All
Yeah, I'm
right.
good to go, man. Let's do it.
Bet. Yo, what is up, world? It's your guy here, Steven Steers, and I am here today with someone you may have seen on the gridiron catching sacks for the Jets, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the New Orleans Saints. You might have seen him on IG. You've probably seen him on YouTube, and you may be familiar with his show, Making America. I have today my guy, Josh Martin, linebacker, filmmaker, and panelist at South by Southwest. Josh, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing all right, Steven. I appreciate that introduction, man. That's probably the best introduction I've had to date. I appreciate that. I try to embody all of those things, different days, different roles, different jobs, right? But yeah, man, how are you?
I'm doing okay, bro. Like we're all going through it with this weird time we're in, but I'm optimistic. I'm excited about things, and I think the most interesting thing about now is it's kind of flattened out access to people.
Mhm.
So like I could get on with you, and I know you're probably home because everybody's
Everybody's
home,
home, man.
you know?
It is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a certainly an exercise in ingenuity and being creative and just finding ways to be inspired. Like even in the best of times, it's our jobs as individuals to find things that inspire us. So I've been going through social media. I have my battles with social media, but I think you consistently have been a person that has put out positivity, some vulnerability, and you're just doing your thing. So I want to take it back to when I met you. I think I met you like 4 or 5 years ago. We were on a rooftop thing in the summer, like for like some cocktails or something, or I think it was a flavor tripping party. We did for anybody
It,
listening,
it sounds more adventurous than it was.
yes, way more adventurous. But there's these things called M berries. This is all completely legal stuff for anybody listening. It's a berry that changes your flavor palette. So sour foods are now sweet, etc. So you can eat a lemon and it tastes like an orange. It's really strange stuff. But we met there, and I remember talking to you. You're definitely the biggest dude in the room. I was like, man, this guy's my height, and he's got like 150 pounds on me. Wow. But the thing that stood out to me even then, and this is a couple of years ago, this was like a venture capital party. And I was like, yo, what are you up to? You're like, oh, I'm working on this, 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 and this. I was like, how did you get into VC? And you're like, well, like I'm in the NFL now, but I won't always be in the NFL. And I want to make sure I have a plan for whatever happens next. And like, that really struck me. And I was like, huh, that's dope. You don't hear about that from someone your age and early in their career. And I'm just curious, like, first off, where did that come from, that mindset?
Really, man, football wasn't my first interest. It wasn't my first love. So it's that in part, I wanted to reconnect with some of the things that I had enjoyed before football took over my life. But also, listen, when I showed up, I was an undrafted free agent with the Chiefs. Day one, day two, people were getting fired left and right, and I was like, wait a second, if I just got here, like, and they can fire me, right? They can essentially end my career. And in the back of my mind, you can't help but think, well, what am I going to do if I am no longer employed in the NFL? What can I build for myself, or what can I learn about what my interests are off the field, and how can I pursue those interests?
Mm, that's what's up. That makes a lot of sense to me. So then let me ask you this question. As far as deciding to build a brand, podcasts, shows, where did that come from, and how did you get started doing that?
Well, it came from understanding that I have a certain level of access and certain level of notoriety just from being a professional athlete, a professional football player in the NFL. And I thought, there has to be a way to leverage that notoriety, that sort of street cred, and build something for myself, right? When I no longer am associated with that shield, at least actively, it's a lot harder to get people's attention. It's harder to get on an Instagram live, or, get a phone call, get an interview, have a conversation when you're not an active player in the NFL. So the thought was, hey, let me build a brand for myself that it will exist beyond my playing days, and be something that I can leverage, to pursue those interests that I was referring to earlier.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Who is somebody that you got to have access to that you were like, damn, like, this is pretty cool?
I've met a lot of cool people, man. From the NFL side, I've met guys like Ronnie Lott, super successful businessman off the field, post career. Business side, I've met who have I met? I've met Stephen Ross, owner of the
Wow.
Dolphins. I mean, I went to Columbia, so I know Robert Kraft. He knows who I am, which is always that's even better, right? And then I'm represented by Vayner Sports, so guys like Gary V and
AJ.
AJ and
Yeah.
all of their resources and connections. Those are, they've been invaluable, all those relationships, when it comes to, exploring and beginning to establish what I want to do next.
What's the biggest piece of game you got from Gary or AJ? Because I know Gary's a huge Jets fan, so that didn't hurt you at
Yeah.
all.
I think, I mean, and I was their first Jets player.
Oh, really?
That,
That's
that
dope.
was that's why it was such a big deal when I joined. Obviously, I'm not with the Jets anymore, but at the time, I was their first Jets player on their roster of athletes. And now they have multiple sports. They're doing really cool things. And if there's one thing that I've taken from Gary, it's really just try to do what you enjoy. Like, do things that you truly enjoy. And for Gary, his big push right now are these sports cards or playing cards, right? And collecting those cards, and finding the business and ways to make money doing something that he enjoys. And that's kind of his whole MO, when it comes to digital media and marketing, and his whole brand and personality. He does things that he enjoys, and that's something that I'm looking to do for myself as well.
What would you say community means to you? Because I know that's a big part of what you're building and why you're building what you're doing.
Yeah, man, it's everything.
Tell me more.
I'm sitting here in my apartment. I have my dog, and I have my friends that I see, once a week, a couple times a week. But I'm used to being surrounded by my community, my team, and for me, I understand that there's only so much that I can do for myself as an individual, and for others as an individual, and that community element comes in. You just instantly up what's possible, right? More is possible when we're able to work together and come together. And when it comes to community, and giving to your community and investing in your community, and vice versa, investing in yourself. It's just a really powerful tool, and not just in accomplishing things, but also in finding kind of solace and peace and joy and happiness, and just having that resource for life.
What would you say is a good way for people to build more communities in these weird times we're in?
Yeah, I mean, I think what a lot of people can do, and this is something that I um, am trying to do better, is reach out to people that you already know, people that you haven't talked to in a while, right? Just
Facts.
reestablish and reaffirm those connections that you've made over the years. Uh, I think that's the biggest thing you can do in terms of building community. Most recently, I had a good friend introduce me to one of his friends. He thought we'd get along, and it just happens naturally. But I think the one thing that people can do that's really easy, it's not going out and meeting people, which is a lot more difficult these days. It's just reestablishing those connections that you've made, especially before everything shut down.
Yeah, digging deeper into what you've already built.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's really real. So I want to take it back to 2019. You were, I remember watching one of your videos, like, man, 2019 has been a crazy year. I was undrafted, I've traveled, I've done this, that, and the other thing.
Listen, if 2019 was a crazy year, little did I know.
Yo, you and everybody. I was
Yeah.
talking to my brother and he was like, yo, if you knew that by March, everything would be a wrap, like, what would you have done on New Year's? I was like, bruh, I can't even begin to describe it. But just taking it back to 2019, because I think like a couple of things really stood out to me as I was prepping for this and going over some of your stuff. So where I really wanted to talk to you is the mindset, right? So I think quarantine, before we started this, you were mentioning it was just like, yeah, it's got the better of us. I think everybody's affected in some extreme way
Absolutely.
by this,
Absolutely.
and ways we can't even probably quantify right now. But 2019, you were like, yo, like I don't have a team yet, so I'm building my own team and I'm gonna be ready for when somebody calls me. I'm gonna be in great shape. And that really struck me because you even have other NFL players who are also just, they can't even play right now.
Hmm.
So like, I wanted to unpack that a little bit to ask, like, how do you, throughout your career, you think what you got, like eight years you've been in the league,
This will
professional?
this will be my eighth year if I can get on the field. This will be my eighth year. Yeah.
How do you keep your routine together to execute on keeping your body tight, not getting those nagging injuries creeping up on you, eating well, and like still living a life with such a rigid and structured thing? Like, how does that work for you? What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it used to be that football informed every decision that I made throughout my life, at least for the past 10 plus years. And that being said, like when you're in the facility, everything is defined for you. I think outside of the facility, there are certain things like, yeah, I'm a free agent. I'm training. I'm doing what I need to do to stay in shape. But when it comes to that structure from the day to day, that's something that I actually, I'm gonna be honest, man. I've been struggling with, right? I'm used to going to the facility X, Y, and Z time, eating breakfast, going to this meeting, going to that meeting, going to foam roll, going to walkthrough, going to the training room to do some prehab, grabbing lunch, getting taped for practice, and then going to review film, going to rest, going to spend time with friends and family, going to sleep, and doing it over again, right? I think the strange thing about this time, and probably for a lot of people, is that we're not at work. Football season has started back. Teams are in training camp, but uh, I can't say that I'm able to participate in that, right? So how do I spend my time? And I'm trying to establish that routine for myself. And throughout quarantine, it's really been, hey, wake up. I have a puppy, so I have to wake up by a certain time. I'm up at 8 a.m. at the latest. Go for a walk, take him to the park. Make sure he uses the restroom outside of the apartment, preferably outside of the building. We're pretty much potty trained now, but we
Uh,
have our accidents.
sure.
Feed him, then I feed myself. Then maybe I read for a while. Maybe I'll meditate. Then
What are
I'll
you
work
reading?
out. Right now, I'm working through Siddhartha.
Okay.
Kind of spiritual Buddhist,
That's
kind of
a,
the whole life's journey, search of self, removing yourself from. It's I'm enjoying it so far. I haven't got to the end, so I can't give
sure.
you like my synopsis, my takeaways, but I'm enjoying it so far.
I think you mentioned in 2019, some of your goals were more mental and self-awareness. So it seems like that's carried through as a theme
Yeah, I
as well.
found with football, I've invested so much in myself physically, and there's limits to that, right? I found that when I was able
No,
to,
there's no limits, bro. Come on. What are you talking about?
there's no limits. Like, listen, 4 surgeries later, I'm telling you, man, there's limits. So I thought, how can I unlock more? And that, that's where that mental health and mental strengthening and self-awareness and improving emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, that's where all that comes in. And that's
Sure.
something that I've been working to improve for myself.
Yeah, and that's the stuff you're gonna have after your career, regardless. So you better
Yeah, I mean,
spend
that
some
stuff
time.
benefits you for the rest of your life. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So you said something that stood out to me. You said grabbing lunch, and you had like a certain reverence around grabbing lunch. So I know you love food. What have you been doing to scratch that food itch during these times?
Listen, I was so excited when all the restaurants started opening up outdoors, man.
What's
I've
the
been
first meal you got?
first meal I got, uh, probably steak frites somewhere in
Okay.
East Village. I forget the name of the place. It wasn't one of my normal spots. A friend introduced it to me. But I've really been exploring the neighborhood around Fort Greene. Romans is a great spot.
Mm-hmm.
Walters is a great spot.
Walters.
Colonia Verde is a great spot. I just went to Great Duck Tacos. I'm not being paid to say that. They are actually good. Um, yeah, man. So
Maybe
I
after this.
love food. I just went to one of my old spots that I've you might have seen the vlog. Tim Hwan.
Mm-hmm.
They have
Temple
these
One.
pork buns, dim sum, delicious. Went there over the weekend. So I'm out and about, safely, of course, wearing my mask,
Sure.
physically distanced. Yeah, man, just trying to make the most of the opportunities and get my foodie fix.
Yeah. Where would you say is? I know you like banh mi. What's the best banh mi you've had outside of Vietnam?
Honestly, I couldn't even tell you, man. I feel like I've had one or two banh mi's, and it's one of those things where I don't like to waste calories, and if I have a certain experience, it's like I had pasta the other day, but it wasn't like good pasta.
Mm,
And if you've been to Italy or you've had really good Italian pasta, you don't need to go to Italy to have good Italian pasta. There's a certain authenticity of eating pasta in Italy, but there's plenty of great pasta and Italian food in New York City, right? So just uh, to answer your question, no, I haven't had a banh mi that I can remember that's worth discussing outside of Vietnam
damn.
to date.
Damn.
But I'm sure I just haven't gone to the right spot.
We'll have to.
So it's a constant journey, right?
It is, man. It is, especially going forward from here. Curious, what advice would you give to your rookie self?
Hmm. You know what? I would probably save more. Not to say that I haven't saved, uh, but I would save more financially, and I'd probably meet more people and develop a better process uh, to stay in touch with people on a
Mm,
regular basis, whether it's reaching out to people quarterly, semi-annually, whatever it may be, just staying in touch with people and being more intentional about the relationships that I'm building. Um, but that being said, it's tough to be as intentional when you don't know exactly what you want to do or what you're about or what you stand for. A lot of the things that you probably researched, I've recently kind of taken this deep dive and practiced this exercise of self-awareness. What do I value? What do I
sure.
feel strongly about? That's something that's been reaching over the last couple of years. So I can't say I would have had those answers my rookie year,
Mhm.
or even the perspective to be able to look back over my time prior to my rookie year and come to the same conclusions. So I think the easiest thing that I could do is just develop those processes earlier. How to stay in touch and then save money, um, and also understand what your goals are financially and for your life, or at least begin to work to establish what those goals are. And I think that'll provide enough clarity to maybe be a little bit further along than I am today.
Sure. I mean, it's a process, man. We all learn.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think there's people who are older than both of us who don't even have that mindset yet. So I think we're
Yeah,
doing
man.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're doing just fine. I'm not gonna say I'm not doing fine. I'm all right. But in terms of could I be a little bit better? Yeah, we all could. So
Yeah, I mean, that's the point, right? Like, I think one thing too that's interesting as a non-professional athlete, right? Like, I think the journey is the reward. It's like I always want to get better. I want to reach that upper limit and then see if I can go past it to know what I'm really capable of. And like
for
mine
sure.
isn't in the physical realm because I can't compete on the fields, but I think mentally it comes kind of back to how can I establish frameworks and processes and systems that allow me to not have to think, but allow me to level up at the same time. So
Mhm.
like I completely resonate with everything you just mentioned. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I want to ask this too. So you said be more intentional about relationships and saving money and stuff. Who would you love to collaborate with or work with in the future?
Mm, a guy that I'm really interested, who I've met a couple of years ago, this comedian Andrew Schultz. I was just thinking to
Schultzy.
myself, he built what he has from the ground up using kind of these free platforms, so to speak, in YouTube, Instagram, social media. Now he has his own like studios and everything, and it's something that is intriguing to me. Excuse me. Uh, because I'm interested in doing something similar, right? I enjoy making content, and I'm not a comedian, but I enjoy learning, and I enjoy sharing the conversations of me learning with a broader audience to hopefully help educate others and open others' minds to new possibilities, new information, right? Inspire them to better themselves in their communities. So it'd be really cool to kind of pick his brain and maybe even do a job shadows internship kind of gig to see what his operation looks like, and maybe learn a thing or two.
That's dope. And a shout out to Andrew Schultz, one of New York's luminaries, especially in these crazy times over here. I want to comment on something, man. I really appreciate that you said some type of internship, because like you've been through some crazy things in your life. Like you come from a big family, you are a professional athlete. That's got its own cachet. But I loved hearing internship, because it's like, I'm ready to go to work. Like I just want to learn. Like that is, to me, you can't teach that trait. That's something that's in you. And where'd that come from, man? Like, is that part of your family or your brothers and sisters and parents that way too?
Yeah, I mean, for me, my parents were teachers, so we were always harping on education and knowledge is power. Is something that they can't take away from you, whoever this they is, but that can't be taken away from you. That's something that you'll always have, and you can lean on. So that's kind of where that came from, I feel like, and I understand that. Listen, I'm a professional football player. I remember my first workout, freshman, not even freshman year. It was the summer after my 8th grade year, going into freshman year of high school. I had never played football, organized football, outside of recess a day in my life. Never put on a football helmet, never put on shoulder pads, except for maybe a costume when I was 5 or 6. Right, I dressed up as a Houston Oilers player. But I remember my first
H-Town.
workout, and I remember my first practice as a football player. It's like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Right, you have to learn. You have to start somewhere, and so that's the memory that I carry with me when and people say, hey, you're going into your 8th year in the NFL, man. You're a pro. You're one of the best football players in the world. Yeah, but I wasn't always, and I understand the work that it took to get to where I am today, and I understand that, hey, I'm not gonna make that transition into something else without learning a little something beforehand. So, I had to humble myself.
The words of a confident man: be humble.
Be humble, man.
Yeah.
Or you will be humbled.
Or you will be humbled. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Content wise. So I was looking over the Making America, which seems almost like a prophecy.
Listen, if I had any idea what was going to happen this year, I would have made Making America. Maybe I did know.
Maybe you did. Yeah. You worked on that for what, like 3 years?
No, not 3 years. It wasn't that long. Listen, it was run and gun type operation. I had the idea in my head. I had been doing the vlogs late 2018. I thought to myself, let me step this up. I love having conversations with people and learning. Let me share these conversations with an even larger audience and add the video element. I've been doing this through my podcast starting a couple of years ago. And I thought, I don't know a lot about these issues. Let's go find some answers and, share those answers. So that's kind of what Making America was. We shot over 2.5 weeks in the spring of 2019. And listen, we've been working on it since. We're currently actively trying to sell it, get someone to pick it up. Things that they didn't tell you about, they don't tell you. I didn't know. Listen, I just jumped in.
That's the best way.
I did not humble myself, but I was humbled. Right? That's what happens. You think, we'll knock this out, get a couple editors, camera guy, audio, what's that? Who needs audio? Ended up losing audio on the road. So it's just one of those things where you just kind of, you will learn one way or another. And we did, but I'm happy with the product that we've been able to create so far, and I'm excited for the opportunities and possibilities.
That's dope, man. I liked the tagline of "It's time to talk," just because like that's perfect for right now. I think a lot of the stuff that's happening in the country and in the world has gotten to the point it's gotten to because people don't take the time to talk
Yeah, and
to
I
each other.
think the biggest thing, I would probably change that tagline. I would probably
Yeah.
say it's time to listen,
Mm.
because everyone's doing a lot of talking,
Uh.
but who's really, humbling themselves and being open to receive what others have to say. I think that's the element that I would add if I were to change the tagline. It's time to talk, but it's time to listen as well, right? I think
Yes.
that's how we make progress.
Yes. 2 ears, one mouth.
Facts.
I remember you were doing some training on the beach with your brother or some person, and
Yeah,
then you
my
were
little bro.
little bro. I
Yeah,
got two brothers, so I definitely recognize the brotherly love element. And you were pointing about the line of scrimmage, and you were like, you have to over communicate. And that I like that too, because obviously you want to make sure that you're setting your guys up for what to look out for, so your team
for sure.
is in the right spot. But I want to unpack a little bit about how that applies to life, because lots of people don't communicate enough, and then they're upset with the results. So how do you take from the line of scrimmage communication to over communicate for your goals and for the things you want to accomplish, so that you are and your team in life, like accountants and other things or whoever you have working with you, are in lockstep with the mission?
Yeah, I think that's you kind of just answered the question. I mean, it's all about making sure that you're working in the same direction,
Uh,
right? If you're not working in the same direction, you don't see the same thing, have the same vision, or at least understand what the vision is, then you're not going to get very far very easily. And I think that's really what it boils down to. I remember the clip you're referring to. We are going over some like punt reads and talking to the long snapper, and in that case, he has his head between his legs, so he really can't see, right? And that's kind of how it is, right? If you have a team, you're building this team, and you have this idea, this vision, this mission in your head. They're pretty much, they might know you as a person and be able to assume or piece together what you want. But if you don't say that clearly, they're essentially wandering around with their head between their legs, right? So that's everything. Just being able to work towards the same thing. You have to understand what that same thing is.
and define it and keep talking about it and never
Yeah,
lose sight of
yeah, and
it.
and
Yeah,
sometimes the target moves, so it's important to it's a continual process.
totally. I like that. Continual process. So talk to me firstly about your trombone in the back and then the
Oh
Harlem
yeah,
School of the Arts.
yeah, man. So I grew up playing musical instruments. Actually, let's cut that there. Can you? I just want to make sure. Can you hear my dog?
No, I cannot hear you, dog.
Okay, perfect. He's it's that time of day, man. It's almost dinner time. But I will answer your question. Yeah, so the trombone. I played musical instruments growing up, and I love music. I tell a lot of people, second to my family. My mom mentioned that because my mom watches my content, right? And I think I was at an event and I was like, oh, band was my first team. It's like I'm the oldest of six. We could have fielded a nice pickup basketball team and been okay.
What's
So
up?
my
Nice.
mom had to remind me, was like, listen, your family is your first team. I was like, all right, mom. So second to my family, band was my kind of my first team, right? This idea that we're all working together to produce this product or have this end goal be, this song that we're all playing together, this composition that we're playing. So for me, it was a really cool challenge. It's truly a foreign language, which is really cool to think about. But I found that it really got away from me when football became more important. When football required more of my time. I won't say football became more important. When it required more of my time, and recently, probably over the last few years, when I was kind of doing, I got a new contract with the Jets. So I had some breathing room. It's like, all right, Josh, you have a little cash now. Let's take a step back. Let's revisit what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it. And it was a way for me to see that I had gotten away from some of the things that I enjoyed. And HSA, being on the board at Harlem School of the Arts, is one of the ways that I'm kind of getting back in touch with my love for music and my love for the arts. So the trombone, I pick it up every now and then, play a couple of notes. I probably couldn't read a piece of music if you put it in front of me, but it's just a reminder more than anything of that passion for the arts and
That's dope.
one of my first loves, right? Music.
Yep, it's definitely one of mine as well. I play the piano and the drums,
Okay,
so I play
sweet.
piano every morning. That's part of my morning routine.
Yeah, man.
Get
That'll get the
20
juices
minutes.
going.
Got to get the juices going. And I think it's also fun because you get to live in structure, but something creative and potentially beautiful comes out,
Mhm.
right? So that's been a great journey for me in my life. Who's the best storyteller you know?
Uh, I can't say the first thought that popped into my mind is Pixar because I feel like that's when you research
Toy
stories or
Story.
yeah,
Toy
it's a
Story, yeah.
Toy Story and all the movies that they put out. Um, as an individual, I think what story am I most familiar with? That's not my own. Probably Gary. Gary's really good. Everyone knows
Gary's
Gary's
great.
kind
Yeah,
of story. He's really good at getting that out there. Starting up in the family business and kind of hustling and grinding and working up to who he is and what he does now. Um, yeah, that's funny. Don't you think that the first person that I remember or think of is kind of like this personal brand? It's not his job. His business isn't making and telling stories. But in terms of storytelling, he's done a pretty good job of telling his own.
yeah. I mean, he's one of the best, if not the best, at just ruthlessly driving through what his story is. And I think to echo some of the stuff you mentioned before, is he's authentic and he's doing what he enjoys. So he's not sugarcoating a damn thing for anybody, and he's just
No, he's not.
talking it
Yeah.
like it is. And that resonates with people because they're like, oh, everybody else is telling me something sweet. And he's like, yo, your idea sucks.
Listen, and if you know Gary's story, you know anything about Gary, you know what you're going to get, and it doesn't change. And I think that reliability, right, that consistency, just kind of speaks to that authenticity.
Absolutely. What would you say is the best advice you've got in your career or life?
Career or life. My family has a saying, and some people have told me, "Hey, I don't know if that makes sense." Yeah, I'll let you be the judge.
Sure.
So my family has a saying: "Nothing beats a failure but a try."
I think it makes complete sense.
Yeah. So for me, um, you gotta do it. You gotta go for it. You gotta try it. At the very least, you won't be able to accomplish it otherwise, right? You have to take that first step. So that's something that I carry with me and have carried with me over the years. Yeah, that's probably the best piece of advice that I've gotten.
What's your goal with the community that you build? So you want to make it massive. You want to help a lot of people. Do you want to turn that into something else?
Yeah, so I think I would say community that I'm building. The goal is just to affect positive change in people's lives. That's the ultimate goal. To bring value to others, to inspire others, to bring value to others and to themselves. That's the goal. If I can touch that many people or however many people I can, I won't say that I would need to have a huge community. It's more important to me that the community is actively doing something and pursuing something, pursuing that greater good, and that being the mission.
Yeah, you mentioned you're reaching out to people you know already. So it's about depth, not breadth.
Yep,
And
absolutely. Let me know if my dog is he's
nah,
big.
Rafiki's a welcome guest of the show.
Okay.
He's the first puppy we had on the show.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. He's in
yeah.
people's
He's
ears and hearts now. So that's what's up.
he's so spoiled, man.
Now that's dope, man. What would you say is some advice you would give to people who are fighting really hard to figure out what's next for them right now?
Mm. So what advice would I give myself?
Yeah, that too. No, I mean, sure.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, let's go with
let,
that.
let's wait. Repeat the question for me one more time, just so I have it.
What advice would you give to anyone who is looking to figure out what is next for them right now?
Uh, I think in order to figure out what's next, it's really important to look back on what you've done. Like we all have a unique set of experiences, that inform our beliefs, what we know, the skills that we have. I think there's a logical next step, and if not purely logical, you get a sense and feel of like what direction you're heading in what direction you're heading. So for me, this idea of community, this idea of building teams. I have a strong history of being a part of teams
Yeah,
and making sacrifices for large groups of people with the goal of providing value. Um, whether that's in band or my family or on the football field. So for me, it made sense to invest or at least pursue giving back to the communities that I'm a part of, and in a way that's authentic to me. I love to learn. I enjoy celebrating other cultures, whether it's through their cuisine, actually mainly through their cuisine, or through my travels and kind of
Yes.
immersing myself in these different places I've been around the world. So let's travel and eat food and have conversations and learn and share those conversations with the larger audience. It takes some time to get there, but that's pretty much how I landed on what I'm trying to do today.
That's
So
awesome.
that's
That's
the
awesome.
advice I give.
I hear a lots of listening in there and lots of giving. Those are the two currents that I hear in there. And I think I would echo that. As hard as this time is, giving something authentic to the people and showing that they're not by themselves, and that
Mhm.
even for someone like yourself, it's like you have most of your looks like your stuff is pretty together. I think it's really refreshing to hear you're like, hey, I'm figuring it out as well, man. I'm no different than anybody.
Yeah,
Like, just trying to be my best.
it's a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
There's no finish line. There's just the race. There's just the journey. I think we might have stop offs. I won't say destinations or ending destination, final destinations, but you have our markers along the way, right? I can say, hey, I had a 7-year, hopefully 8-year career in the NFL. That's just one. That's just one chapter. So
Hmm. What are you hearing about the league right now? So you mentioned people are at training camps, 55, 53 people per team, like no
yeah,
bubble. Like,
so
what does that look
there's
like?
no bubble. They've extended the rosters. Actually, they made them
Okay.
larger. I think they restricted them to 80. They only have to cut it down to 67 for the season because they can have more people on their practice squads now. I think they can have up to 15 people, 14 or 15 people on the practice squads. So listen, we'll see what happens. I think the big test is going to come when teams are traveling and the season starts and players aren't locked down in the facility for 12 hours, 14 hours a day in training camp. When players
Wow.
are able to go out into the cities and explore, go out to dinner, go out to eat, and then travel to play other teams in other cities. I think that's going to be the test, right? Training camp is easy because we're essentially in 32 different bubbles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Players are staying at the hotels. You might get your days off, and if you live in the city, you're going home. Ideally, that's a clean place, but they're being tested every other day. If not, I think for the first couple of weeks, it was every day until they reach a certain threshold. Then at the very minimum, it's every other day.
Wow.
So they're being tested all the time, and they're really good about. It seems like they're really good, right? I haven't seen it firsthand myself, but it seems like the protocols and safety precautions that they're taking are, you know, they're
NFL
what's
class.
necessary. Yeah,
Yeah.
NFL class, man.
Yeah.
Listen, if there's no NFL season, there's no NFL money. That's how it works, right? So they're doing what they can to do what
They
they
got,
can.
they got to handle their business, literally.
Yeah.
Football is a business. Who'd you say is the funniest person in the locker room in your career and the teams you've been on? Just has you cracking up all the time.
Uh, it was a pretty funny guy. Listen, there's a comedy show every time we're in the locker room. But the first guy that comes to mind that's pretty funny that was also fun to play with was a teammate I had with the Jets. His name is Rontez Miles.
Okay.
Super funny dude. Just a great football player. He played safety when I was with the Jets. We played a lot of special teams together. Cool dude, man. Funny guy. Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's my vote. And not, no offense to anyone else. There's plenty of funny guys out there, but the first person that comes to mind is Rontez.
Shout out to Rontez. What play are you most proud of in your career so far?
You know what play I'm proud of? So I was playing the Raiders 2017, and I was on kickoff. And I don't know if you're familiar with kick returners.
Yes.
There's this one very large kick returner. His name is Cordarrelle Patterson. He's essentially the same size as me, but runs faster. And we're on kickoff, right? And this, I don't know, it's just fate. This always seems to happen. The entire, like, it's like a C parts, and it's just me and him running right at each other full speed. And you know what?
Ooh.
I tackled him.
Ah.
I don't remember much, but I tackled him, and that's probably one of the most memorable plays. I got to find that clip. I'm working on getting that clip to post on social. But it was one of those hits where it's like, this is why football careers don't last forever, right?
Ooh, you knew it right there.
No,
Damn.
you knew it right there. I mean, you know it when you're getting picked up off the ground and everyone's, slapping you on the back and saying, great job, man. You're like, oh, what happened?
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's one of those things. I know what happened, but listen, football's a violent sport. It's not for everybody.
It is not for
We,
everybody.
we know the risks that we take and the sacrifices that we make. And, it is what it is.
It's much like life. It's a game of inches.
Yeah, very much so.
It's a game of inches. Anything else you would add to the people out there? Life, mindset, books, food, hobbies. What do people not
Uh,
know about Josh Martin?
you know, I think given this year, in the context of this year, for me personally, and obviously with COVID, uh, struggling is a healthy response. You're not going to always excel. Everything is not always going to be the best that it's ever been. I think having that perspective that, hey, struggling is okay, and it puts kind of those successes and those good times in perspective, um, goes a long way. So struggling is okay. So it's okay to slow down a bit and to have some difficult times. So that's the advice that I'd give.
That builds character. Josh, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, and just your general mindset, man. Like, I'm much inspired by what you've been doing. Sitting down and chopping it up with you, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you for doing what you
Yeah.
do.
Thanks for the time, Steven. I appreciate the questions, man. You'll have to share some of this so I can post the conversations and obviously give you a blast. And I enjoyed this.
Absolutely, man. I'm gonna stop the thing.